Hi, everyone. Welcome back to MillennialTheraMom. Today, I'm excited for us to talk about motherhood, inner niña, inner child healing, and more with Huda, also known as JJ Postpartum Wellness. She is a bilingual perinatal and postpartum mental health specialist dedicated to supporting women in their perinatal mental health wellness through compassionate education, nervous system regulation, and early intervention tools, helping them feel grounded, informed, and reconnected to who they are becoming. She is also a speaker, facilitator, mentor, and mama of two. So thank you so much for being here, Huda. So before we kind of jump in, is there anything that I missed from my little intro that you wanted to share on?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Joanna, for having me on this episode today. I'm very honored, super excited to share a little bit of my motherhood journey as a first gen Latina. A lot of things that I have learned, even though I am a professional in the perinatal mental health field. But I grew up in Santa Clara County, so if you're hearing this episode and you're from that county, give us a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of likes and comments out there. Because a lot of people might think that, oh yeah, yes, I'm from California, but the South and the North are
Mm,
very, very different. So yeah,
mhm,
and my parents are they immigrated from Guadalajara, Jalisco, but they actually met in the US. So it's not like we migrated to the US as a family or even, as a couple, my parents. So that's also a
awesome.
different experience for me.
Yeah, we got different parts of Cali here, and 100% I'm from San Diego, and it's just so funny growing up how different it was. I wasn't like I think I was like a late teenager by the time I visited North Cal, and I was like, oh, it's different, but it's good now. Now that I'm not in California anymore, I'm like, I love all of California, But sometimes when you're in it, you can get a little like North versus South, and it's like we're just let's just unite. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Huda. And exactly like you said, even as somebody who has education, awareness of skills, that doesn't mean that we're exempt from like the feelings and the roller coasters of motherhood. So thank you so much. I know we'll just start off with our first question, which you kind of touched on a little bit, but can you share what your journey into motherhood has been like and how matrescence, this process of becoming a mother, reshaped your identity, your emotions, and your sense of self as a first gen mama?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a pandemic mom. My daughter was born in April of 2020, so very early on when everything was shutting down in the US. So my motherhood journey was just a 360 experience. And I say 360 because it was completely different from a lot of the things that I've had heard, I had seen of what I thought my pregnancy, my labor and postpartum, and even early motherhood years were going to be like. And just, maybe around 4 years into having my daughter and going into having my second baby, I started to understand more about what matrescence was all about, what the hormonal impact we have in our mood, in our health, and how we relate with oneself and with others. So I would have to say that yes, my experience was extremely, extremely rough. I've had the courage to speak more on my depression, anxiety, and even PTSD and just these hamster going wheel thoughts, which is rumination that I had. And because, there's a term called perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, that it's not just, experiencing depression or anxiety in pregnancy or in postpartum. So I always say, man, I think I had a combo of
Hmm.
all of these symptoms, and like I mentioned, that it takes time. It takes time to share your story, your vulnerabilities, your real motherhood challenges. Again, because maybe we're afraid of being judged, mislabeled, and again, right? that not having that validation and kind of hearing over and over. I know for myself, well, you had a partner, you have your parents,
Mhm.
well, you have a house, well, you have all of this. How
Mhm.
is it possible that you ended up with, very, very severe depression and anxiety? And again, right, this PTSD, but I think that sometimes labels are good. I mean, it depends because I don't really like, yes, I have experience, but I don't label myself like, oh, I'm a depressive or, I am depressed in my pregnancy. I have experience, but I think the label that I do really like to take on as a first gen, especially having so much like this narrative as
Mhm.
first gens of what motherhood needs to look like. And again, like the eldest daughter of
Mhm.
immigrant parents, there's so much emotional
Mhm.
um, let's see. Yeah, there's like so much things that we bring to ourselves.
Mhm.
Like that invisible, yeah, invisible emotional labor, not just from like maternity, but carrying on our parents' dreams, honoring their sacrifices. So it's kind of like, how do I have time to grieve all of these perinatal losses? And again, the perinatal loss is not just the life of a little one, or maybe the life of a mom, or someone's life, but I was grieving not having a baby shower. I grieved not having the labor that I thought I was going to have. I have grieved the postpartum experience I didn't have because COVID was out of my hands. So I was in lockdown. It wasn't like, oh, let me go take like a 5 minute walk. I was like really scared, like for
Mhm.
myself and for my baby. So like I've shared, I think really understanding the this term of matrescence, or in
Mhm.
Spanish, la matrescencia, has really supported my mental health being as a mom. Why? Because it's a rite of passage where mothers do undergo a lot of emotional, psychological, physical, hormonal, chemical changes that we're learning how to adapt with all these changes on top of the recuperation that we are having from these birth experiences and then going on to postpartum. So that's just the
Yeah.
tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, yeah, I know that's literally an iceberg. I remember when I first got into this work in my own postpartum too, because I was like, what are all these feelings that I was not anticipating? Because especially as a first-time parent, maybe there's so much focus on the pregnancy, and if you have a little bit of anxiety, it's like I just want to do whatever I need to do to make sure this baby is good, but you don't think about yourself and what you are going to experience postpartum, or even that if it's normal, right, to be so worried
Mhm.
or so anxious. And exactly like you said, I think that a lot of the times there's a lot of things that are underneath the surface that could be contributing to our experience. And I consider myself like a bicultural mama too. I'm also first gen, and it was like, well, like I still have to make sure that I'm working really hard to make the sacrifice worth it, and right, that productivity pull and that like do something, but at the same time being like, I can't do that right now as a mom. I don't even want to go back to work. Like I don't feel right doing that. And there's also, the concept of Marianismo, right? Like a lot of our Latina moms just kind of self-sacrifice themselves. And that's just what you do, and you don't complain, and you don't complain, right? Like you're not even allowed to share negative, not negative, but unwelcome, uncomfortable feelings, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're not being grateful. You should be grateful. But in reality, it's like we need to be seen in all of our motherhood, the whole picture. Because when we don't, exactly what you said, like our mental health is going to struggle a little bit more if we feel like we're the only ones going through it. Because then we start to should ourselves, and we start to be like, well, the other people's voices become our voices, right? It's like, well, I should be grateful and I should be good and happy, and then you're not. So we end up keeping it inside. And I mean, one thing that I've learned now is like, my mom is still such a hardworking woman too, but I've seen now how her hard work has manifested in physical like symptoms and surgeries and health problems. And I think that the research shows that like their stress on your body will impact you physically, and stress on your mind, will impact you physically. So, especially as people who are stepping into the mental health field, it's like, ooh, that push and pull of like, oh, my culture is calling me this way, but my mental health and wellness is calling me over here. So fine, I call it a dance, right? Like I can
Mhm.
still honor my culture. I mean, like I'm so grateful for the experiences that my mom, was able to set up for me. And at the same time, I don't want to be a self-sacrificing at the extent of my health anymore,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like I don't have to burn out for other people because it does show up in parenting, right? Like a burnt out mama, oh, she's gonna react more than respond and be a
Yep.
little snappy and maybe even emotionally disconnected. I mean, like, yes, I'm washing the dishes and I'm feeding you and I'm paying rent, but are we connected emotionally? Everything comes with a cost. So, yeah, thank you for being honest and real because I think that's what we need. We need more like real conversations. Like, yep, that's real. Me too. Hey y'all, if this conversation is resonating or helpful at all, please hit that subscribe and follow Millennial TheraMom on Instagram and YouTube to stay posted on these kinds of conversations. Secondly, I definitely want to encourage you to go check out the free Grounded Motherhood Guide now available at MillennialTheraMom.com under the free resource tab. And you can even explore La Tiendita, which you can find at GroundedMotherhood.com for links to our free cafecitos and additional resources. Please share this with anybody else who could benefit from this, and cuídense. Bye. I know that like a big reason I wanted to connect with you too is like the inner child, the inner niña healing. So it's definitely something I'm experiencing too, just kind of like, all right, what is my inner niña needing and how is she doing? But how has motherhood invited you to reconnect with and heal your inner niña, especially in those moments of triggers or struggles or guilt?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I've been on my own healing journey for quite a long time. And I feel it's quite a long time because it's been like about 5 years ever since I became a mom. And I really have to say that motherhood has been the greatest mirror
Mm.
of my inner Niña,
I
which
love
I never thought was was going to happen. And there's a term, transparencia psíquica or transparency psychic, which I call it. It's a portal, and it's a term used in perinatal mental health of like there are these portals that take us back to our childhood
it.
traumas and adversities, even though we have already maybe made peace, maybe we have already worked through them, we are receiving support because that was me. I was receiving support during my pregnancy in person therapy services. Not so much in postpartum because everything, well, for my first birth, because everything was switching into being more virtual. So when I was in the hospital, I was like, is there support groups? Is there like, can I see somebody? They're like, oh, we're tr just trying to figure out the system. And yeah, that's how everyone was in the pandemic. We're just trying to figure out how do we go online.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I didn't receive a lot of support. I didn't really have yeah, a really like strengthened support system, unfortunately. So I was just kind of had this question again, like, why does my past feel so heavy? I've already made peace. I've already done some of the work. I feel fine. I have my second baby, which I gave birth, or I was pregnant up until August of 2024 until I gave birth. And I continue to ask myself, why does it feel heavy? Why do I kind of keep dragging my trauma? I'm working on it. I'm like doing these grounding techniques. I am supporting myself. Again, we're not in the pandemic, so I was able to be more outside and within more groups, more support until I found this term, right? Transparencia psíquica. And so, yeah, it's like these portals that take us back to our past that sometimes, yeah, I couldn't I didn't have much control of it. And
Mhm.
it's different for everybody again, right? Because our hormones are shifting. We feel very, very vulnerable, you know. Anything can make us really emotional, whether it's really happy, whether it's really sad, whether it's really really worried. So I would have to say that that was one of the biggest impact in motherhood that I never would have thought
Mhm.
that I was going to be taken. And I think also greatly because of my support system that wasn't too great. And I didn't have a really great foundation as well, again, because of the pandemic and just, you know, other things that I was experiencing in my second pregnancy. But I was like, why does it feel so heavy, so hard? Um, and yes, like my daughter would see me cry and she would see me upset. And I know from like the work that I've done as a therapist or, you know, emotional support that I continue to give for mothers, sometimes we feel very, very ashamed of expressing our feelings or that our children see our feelings. And it's very important. And this is something that I have also learned because I didn't really see my parents show a
Mhm.
lot of feelings when I was growing up. So it was kind of in a way for me we're modeling
Mhm.
emotional intelligence and self-regulation to our little ones. So my daughter oftentimes she would see me cry a lot and be very, very upset. And I tell her, you know, mom is not doing well, but mom is going to be okay. Mom is getting the help and whoa, getting a little emotional there.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I do remember certain sessions where I had online and my daughter, I think she was maybe around 4 years old, three and a half, where she would see me crying and you know, I told her mom is getting the help. So I feel very, very proud of myself that
Mhm.
even though I was in so much distress, and like many people or many women actually in this perinatal period might say, but why? Why do I continue to feel sad, upset, alone, emotionally, like not supported or validated? And this could be one of the reasons. Again, everyone is different. We all hold different stories, but yes, definitely motherhood has been one of the, like I say, my little phrase has been one of the greatest mirrors of
Mhm.
my inner niña.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is so beautiful to be able for you to have that like moment with your daughter too, because I think, I mean, I honestly think I became a therapist because I was so sensitive and so chillona, and I was like, why is nobody else like so sensitive? Why are people rude? You know, I was like, what's wrong with me? I thought that something was wrong with me because unfortunately in our culture sometimes it could be like, para de llorar, right? It's a weakness. Like you don't want to show that. And I was always like, but why? Like, why is it so bad? But again, you're a kid, so you try to fit in and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna cry anymore. That just turned into anxiety. Because it's like, well, I have all these feelings, but I'm not supposed to. I'm not supposed to have them. So push down, push down.
Yeah,
And I,
that's
I,
the
I know there's different ways that people experience. Some people are internalizers, right? We're gonna keep it in. We're gonna kind of go in, and some people are more externalizers. Maybe they'll have more outbursts or behaviors. And even in my family, I'm like, oh, there's a mix. There's a mix for
yeah.
sure. But I think about all these people who are struggling with either like internal struggles or external struggles. And I'm just like, man, if we just allowed ourselves to cry, that could help heal the world. I honestly, truly believe that in my heart. I'm like, because we
Yeah.
need to have a way to move through our emotions and to
Mhm.
get to the place where it's like releasing not only the stress, but again, the feelings. And if we can see our parents model that for us, it's like, open generational like healing, right? It's and I
Mhm.
actually had written a poem around like para de llorar, dicen, right? And I kind of like as I was writing it, it kind of connected to like the generational trees before me. I was like, if I have to be the one that cries for the generations before me, I will, because it is kind of sad to think that for a lot of people it's not safe to cry. And for a lot of people it's still not safe to cry because you'll
Mhm.
get laughed at or mocked at, you know, and it's like, ah, man, we still there? Like it's 2025, 2026, I guess. But I guess some people are still hiding behind that and that not understanding, right? That we all have different personalities and temperaments. Some of us are a little more chillonas than others, but you know what? We're the healers also a lot of times. So you're welcome. Whenever you have something going through, look for the people in your family who cry, because we'll be able to hold space for you. But
Yeah.
until then, at least within our families, it's like it can be such a beautiful thing. And even now with my girlie, she's 2. But that's one of my hopes and prayers is that I never tell her, stop crying. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
of how much I felt like I heard that when all I needed was a little hug. And it
Mhm.
can seem so simple, but like pausing and being like, yes, it makes absolutely no sense that she's crying right now to me.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
there's something in her. She doesn't have the words or the prefrontal cortex or the
Mhm.
co-regulate whatever regulation skills.
Yeah.
So I have to be like, oh, we're sad. Do we need
Yeah.
a hug? Or whatever, right? And it's work, but it does also, I feel like that's kind of healing my little inner niña too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Doesn't mean like wounds don't pop up or like, oh, I wish I could have had that, but you also have to bring understanding and be like, well, yeah, I understand why when we're parented by somebody who is on survival mode or burnt out, pausing to hug you while you're crying is a waste of time, when
Yeah.
there's like real issues like paying the rent, real
Yeah.
issues, right? Quote unquote. Um,
Yeah.
so holding understanding and compassion for yourself and those who raised you. So that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I think like we might be segueing into our next
Mhm,
question here
mhm,
because I know that there's a lot of moms from, the work that I do, the volunteerships, and, just being able to conversate with other mothers. There's a lot of need. There's a lot of need of finding the answers of like why do I feel emotionally triggered? Why do I feel so emotionally heavy? Like why do I feel so alone in such a beautiful stage of life? And yes, these different or polar opposite feelings can coexist, right? A lot of joy, happiness, radiance, and sadness, loneliness, jealousy, grieving can also coexist during this time. I call it a very chaotic life, transition of life, but also very loving and warm. So
mhm,
both can coexist. So going back right to a lot of moms that are beyond the postpartum stage, since I work a lot with this population, trying to still figure out and find their answers of like why do I continue to feel like motherhood such a heavy job? Why can't I just enjoy it as I thought I would, or as how I might be seen, unfortunately, on social media and all of these platforms that we see, because this is the era
mhm,
that we live in, and it's only a glimpse, right? It's only a
mhm,
glimpse of all this stuff that we see on social media, because the reality is it parenting, being a mother, co-parenting, whatever may be your situation, is extremely difficult. But it's also difficult as a first gen to be healing your inner niña,
mhm,
trying to heal yourself, trying to find the answers for yourself while trying to educate your children through
mhm,
gentle parenting techniques and other supportive ways that were not taught or modeled or were used with us growing up. So I said, wow, that's a really,
mhm,
really tough job that we have as first gen Latinas, or identify as a first gen person of color, that we're breaking cycles, we're healing ourselves, we are learning new techniques.
mhm,
So we're like, we are also reparenting ourselves, using more self-compassion,
mhm,
learning how to self-regulate, how to use these tools, how to ground ourselves. And
mhm,
even for us as adults, this stuff can be really hard and is really hard. So I said, there
mhm,
aren't any perfect days. We're just trying our best as adults and as parents as well. So Yeah, it takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
work. It's very hard, and I think we deserve to celebrate each other if you identify as a caregiver, a mother, to
Mm-hmm.
celebrate each other even more because a lot of the time that self-critic voice is a lot louder than that self-compassion voice, and we put ourselves down a lot. Oh, I didn't wash the dishes. Oh, I didn't pick up. Like right now, if I turn my camera around, I would say 90% of the time, whether I'm in session, whether I'm doing a workshop, whether I'm recording or I'm a guest or whatever work I'm doing, I say if I turn my filter off or if I turn my camera on, real motherhood is going to show up. I have a whole bunch of toys, a lot of clothes. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes I show in my stories that, yeah, the clothes was from yesterday. And I'm like, I don't know how long this clothes has been on the floor because my baby keeps taking it out. But that's just the reality of motherhood,
Yeah.
that sometimes we just don't allow ourselves to be like, hey, I'm human. I
Hmm.
am not a super mom. I'm also healing myself. And let alone, we have projects, we have careers, we have personal aspirations.
Hmm.
We might have a partner. We also might have a romantic relationship that also needs to be filled in and
Hmm.
needs to be attended. So it's a lot. It's so much
Yeah.
to be handled by a first gen mom in this time and age.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the invisible work. And that was honestly one of the things that in my own postpartum, whenever I was starting to feel like anxiety or rage or irritability, learning about the mental load, all of the invisible things that we are doing or trying to do, whether it's related to parenting or healing, like that is also heavy on us, right? It's still a load. So whenever I hear, even like, I would stay at home primarily for the first 2 years of my daughter's life. And before being a stay-at-home, I thought that being stay-at-home was like easy. Oh my goodness, was I wrong? I was so wrong. So I apologize for that belief because I didn't realize how much invisible work there is in parenting and mothering. And also that unlike my 9 to 5 where I could just sit and be by myself and hear my thoughts or go to the bathroom, you don't get that as a stay-at-home mom, and then also I always say we only have one nervous system, right? So there's only so much that we can tolerate. And if you are someone who has experienced maybe more like stress or like adverse experiences earlier in life and like traumas and stuff, you might be a little more sensitive. So you might get overstimulated a little bit more. And there's nothing wrong with you, but understanding like, oh, I do need more breaks throughout my day to breathe, to dance, to shake, to whatever. Or even I remember vividly trying to feed my daughter for the first time and all the stimulation. It was too much for me. The squishy little things on my finger, the screaming. Like I had to put on. I had a therapist back then, and I had to put on like little earplugs to help with the stimulation. And I would turn down the lights because I'm like I'm getting overwhelmed, and it's not her fault. So I don't want to snap at her. And that was work. That was like real work. So then when you add again, like now the generational cultural expectations, it's
Mhm.
more work. So like you said, it's not it's that it's not going to be work, but how do we relate to ourselves in the work? Are we gonna be like a drill sergeant being like, you should then, or are we gonna be like an encouraging coach and be like, you know what, Mija, that's a lot. That makes sense. Go put on Selena because you need a little cumbia right now. Just move your hip. Which I know I talk about a lot, but that's honestly helped me a lot throughout my own, first wave of postpartum and just be like, oh, okay, it is a lot. And learning self-compassion, like you said, doesn't mean it's easy, especially if you've had a critic kind of self-talk for most of your life, which gets stuff done. You know what I mean? I got all these degrees, all these fancy diplomas, but I'm just like, ooh, what was my self-talk like? I'm okay with stepping back and not being so high achieving anymore if that means I can have longer health for me and my daughter and my family. So all very real. So I guess related to that, how has this, healing your inner niña shaped the way that you show up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, something that you talked on is the importance that as a caregiver, as a mom, whatever you identify as, being an actual, yeah, fomentar, crecer, the self-compassion. So being able to grow that self-compassion muscle. It's a muscle, right? That we need to work out. And I tell,
Mhm.
people, and even for myself, if I work out that, this muscle over here, only once a month, am I going to see any change? Well, I don't think so. So,
Mhm.
just in small doses, because it's new, it's very new, and it's going to be like, wow, this feels weird. Am I doing it right? Like a lot of different questions, but small dosages, little by little, and then that inner, that self-compassion voice is gonna
Mhm.
override that inner critic, and we need both in life, right? Like you mentioned, and like any other feeling too. Anxiety is good. Why? Because we need to be alert in different situations. A lot of the times we don't have the opportunity to, I'm
Mhm.
going to respond. As adults, our prefrontal cortex is developed, which allows us to respond. I'm going to take a seat down and I'm going to see what are my options.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to take,
Mhm.
see, this looks, no. Why? Because there's a dog coming really fast at me. So I need to like get out of the way. And in our
Mhm.
parenting, right, especially in postpartum, this amygdala, it's a lot more sensitive. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to sleep for 8 hours peacefully. No, like I can't really take a lot of breaks because I need to make sure, is my baby okay? Is he not gagging over milk? Does my baby need to burp or gases or whatever it may be? But that importance of working our self-compassion as caregivers, because again, like I explained, there's a lot of different terms, there's a lot of techniques, there's a lot of information that we are partaking, that we are yeah, that we are practicing for ourselves, and that's where it comes the reparenting ourselves, right? Well, I'm going to talk to myself in a more compassionate way. Hey, Judah, okay, well, I didn't get it done. That's okay. You
Mhm.
got 5 out of the 11 things, and that's okay. Why? Because I have 2 children, I have sessions, I have this, I have a 2-story house, and I'm like, there's a lot going on. So I need to give myself grace for that, and that's what I also tell the parents when I facilitate the resilient parenting classes. Be kind, be
Mhm.
gentle, be patient, have a lot of self-compassion. We can't just learn this, como dicen en español, de un día para otro, from one day to another. It
Mhm.
takes time because I mean we're adults like in our 30s or 20s or whatever
Mhm.
it may be, relearning a lot of the different parenting styles. So yeah, learning how to be less reactive, supporting how to regulate my nervous system, being more aware of my personal needs and yeah, like what overstimulates them, which is pretty big also in motherhood, like you mentioned. And I know I have like several examples as well. But for me, and we're in 2026. I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, but one of my friends told me, "Hey, Huda, you're not in survival mode anymore." And I said, "Wow, you're right." Yes, yes, I'm not in survival mode anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't get stressed, worried, or maybe, my nervous system gets, a little shaken here and there.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I had never said those words out loud when she sent me the text. And I said, yeah, you are right. And it's taken a lot of work. I mean, especially since motherhood. I mean, everything just blew up. It
Yeah.
felt a lot more bigger, but it's
Mhm.
a lot, it's a lot of work. It's work, dedication, time, commitment, support, whether you have a partner or not, or you're, supportive community system, even financially. There's some things that we do have to invest on. There are other things that, might be more of an accessible fee. But yes, I think learning to support my nervous system and what are my triggers, that, like you mentioned, it's not my children's fault, but it's just the way that I grew up. And unfortunately, it just kind of feels bigger, like a big, big alarm when my children do it. And for example,
Mhm.
I know for myself that when I'm like very overwhelmed or stressed, I say, okay, I have to start my day with a shower. And this is something that last year I was like, why do I feel so calm in the water, especially when I'm in my home in Mexico that, I have the opportunity. I'm very blessed to have the beaches like within 20 minutes
Mhm.
nearby. And I can just take some time and go to the beach and I say, why do I feel so calm with the water? So, yeah, so safe, like relaxed. And I said, wow, this is my go-to tool to
Mhm.
support and regulate my nervous system. Yes, I can't go to the beach maybe every day,
Mhm.
or I can't live there, but
Mhm.
I hop on the shower. So I know for myself, okay, if I'm feeling too overwhelmed, too over triggered, if I have the opportunity, I'll go and go into the shower. And another thing, is working through breaking generational cycles, such as setting more firm boundaries within myself. And I always kind of like to start with myself and then broader apart, with myself, with my loved ones, with people at work, with my own projects. Because yes, I do get that question like, how do I do it? ¿Cómo lo hago todo? And
Mhm.
it's been a work in progress because sometimes I wanted to fill my whole agenda with everything, clean the house, have perfect kids, have them fed, cooked home meals, have a date night with my husband, go to church, have my sessions, do my volunteer. And yeah, like you mentioned, I burned out. That is no good. So yeah, just learning
Right.
how to set those boundaries, have stronger boundaries. And what supported me the most, and there's a lot of moms that feel guilt around this, is working on reconstructing your identity, which comes with, matrescence, because
Mhm.
it's a transformation. A lot of the times we feel that guilt. We feel all of these maybe not so pretty feelings of, I'm going to take time for myself.
Mhm.
I'm going to do this for myself, whether it's, a little bit of self-care or going back to work, working on a project, going onto an entrepreneurial role or idea. There's so much guilt, but I can say that I don't really feel guilt anymore. I do feel sad. I do feel sad, maybe angry or upset
Mhm.
that, hey, I'm taking more time for my work, or,
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I was not so much with my children because I really need to finish
Mhm.
this project. And again, it's like
Mhm.
that dance that you said, it's
Mhm.
just,
Like the.
where am I
Mhm.
gonna go, with this dance? But when we as mothers invest in ourselves, whether it's in our mental health,
Mhm.
financially, spiritually, in our body, in our wellness, in our health, we are modeling. We are
Mhm.
modeling an identity. We are modeling aspiration. We are modeling ambition. We are modeling good habits. We are modeling so many things
Mhm.
for our children. And I know I heard from somebody also say, I don't feel guilt. And I was like, what do you mean you feel guilt for doing all of this? And now that's how I feel now. I
Oh yeah.
don't I don't feel guilt. I really don't. Do I feel sad? Yes. Do I feel upset or angry or maybe
Mhm.
some other feeling? Absolutely, I do. But it's like, no, I also need to invest for myself. And there's like a phrase that I really like to share with the moms, that in our Mexican culture, there's a saying, voy a morir por mis hijos. I'm going to die for my children.
Mhm.
And I changed it for myself. I changed that narrative for myself. And it's, yes, what mother, que mamá, doesn't want to die for of course we would give our life because we love our children, but why like die inside and mentally and physically? And I know I have experience with my mom and your mom, Joanna, that you shared as well. And instead of like, I'm going to die, I'm going to live for
Mhm.
myself. For myself, I'm going to live for my children
Mhm.
as well. And por ahí
Yeah.
último es, como habías mencionado, y why do I say I live and why did I say for myself first? Because yes, somos como unos vasitos. We're these little cups
Mhm.
that, and again, that oxygen
Mhm.
analogy or metaphor that we see, if we don't put it on ourselves first, how can we support others? If I don't fill my cup up, how can I pour into other cups, my children, marriage, projects? I
Mhm.
can't. And like you mentioned, I love what you mentioned. If my cup is empty, what am I going to pour? And siempre digo, yes, we can pour anger, we can pour
Mhm.
reaction, we can pour all of these. different things that are not healthy.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and I definitely want to encourage everyone to take that with them. Like, I'm going to live like for myself. And I know it can be so hard for, I mean, as a mom myself and as a therapist, I've seen how much moms even struggle to get support for themselves. And I'm like, I get it. I feel that I have felt that in my body. It's generational, it's cultural. And
Mhm,
if it takes thinking about like what would be the difference for my kids if I get help? Even if that's your starting point, like, would I invest in my mental health for my kids? A lot of moms will say yes. It's like, oh, for my kids, yes, because it does. Like, I would say it's like out of the abundance of our heart, our mouth
mhm,
speaks, right? Like, what's in our heart is going to come out. And if we're feeling neglected or resentful or anxious or angry, bitter, that's going to come out whether we like it or not. So it's like, let's get the starting point. If we need to, like, okay, I'm going to take the next step in my healing journey for my kids. And who knows, maybe eventually you'll be like, you know what, I do this for me now. But it did
mhm,
start with my kids. I know for me, therapy started because I was like, I'm at home with my kid all day long and I want to be able to be present, but I can't be present. How come I can't be present? So I was like,
mhm.
okay, I'm gonna do it for her, but eventually I realized like actually this is for me too, and it's still I'm 2 years and 3 months in, so I feel like pretty early on, but it'll be cool to kind of reflect, in the future here and be like, oh my goodness, I think different. So thank you again for that reminder. And I guess just last but not least, could you just share how people can connect with you and the work that you offer, and maybe one little piece of wisdom that you would want to share with any other mama healing their little inner niñas, little inner children in their motherhood?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say thank you, Joanna, and thank you for everyone who is going to be watching or is watching the video when the episode when it airs. You can find me on Instagram as JJ Postpartum Wellness. All of my work is in Spanish and English. I offer one-on-one, I have mentoring. I also have like a monthly support package for moms that are going to go into postpartum. I have a community called Amarte on WhatsApp where we just kind of meet up for once a month for free and we visit different topics on motherhood and little perks and giveaways if
Awesome.
you are in the community. And a last message that I would like to give is we are women, we are human beings. We need to be supported. It's important to break away from these narratives. And yes, it's really hard, it's really difficult, but we owe it to ourselves. We
Mhm.
owe it to have a healthy mental health because it's health, to have a healthy physical health, wellness, spirituality, aura, whatever, or intuition, whatever you want to call it, because you deserve it. It is un ser humano. You're a human being that deserves the best. My belief is we only live one time on earth. God has created this earth for us to take advantage and explore and exploit all the goodness that He has provided for us. But if we are ill, if we don't feel well, mentally, physically, spiritually, no podemos aprovechar. We can't take advantage. No podemos disfrutar of all of these goodness that, God has given us. So
Mhm.
motherhood is not to do it alone. We cannot do it alone. Please reach out for help. In this era, 2026 that we are in, there's so many resources. There's podcasts, there's YouTube, there's links, there's books, there's so many cool workbooks. There's free communities or low-cost communities. There's local resources maybe in the area that you're in. We are here. You can
Mhm.
send us a message and we can
Mhm.
connect you to something around you, but it's a time to not be doing this alone anymore. So
Yes,
thank you.
yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, exactly like who that mentioned, like even if you don't necessarily sign up for support with us, like we are both still connected to Postpartum Support International, which is a great resource, and we can help point you in the right direction. I also want to share, so this is going to be releasing March 2026, and I'm actually coming out with the Grounded Madrehood, little Spanglish poetry and reflection journal too. So that's kind of like just something fun that honestly, poetry. If you are a mama out there who's ever liked poetry or, like Where the Sidewalk Ends or Tupac or whoever, try writing. I never realized how much like writing can also help process. But if you're creative, draw, dance, whatever it might be. But we're here for you. Definitely, I'll put more information, but I hope that you all take care and you pour into yourselves because, like Huda said, you deserve it. All right, y'all take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. I want to encourage you to keep nurturing yourself and your journey in motherhood or to share it with a mama that you know. First of all, I would love if you could subscribe or follow along to the MillennialTheraMom podcast, Instagram, and YouTube channel to show your love, to show your support, and to make sure this information gets out to all mamas and new parents. Secondly, definitely go ahead and grab your free Grounded Motherhood guide at MillennialTheraMom.com/free resource, or you can just look at the tabs on the website. Check out the Escuelita, our virtual learning community, also on MillennialTheraMom.com. And last but not least, you can explore the Grounded Madrehood Tiendita for cafecito links and few more goodies that are coming out soon, including a Spanglish poetry and journal. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you continue to nurture yourself and ground in your motherhood. Cuídense.